Hello and welcome back. I'm Nicole, a cottage witch, and today I'm doing a response to the Tarot Tubers A to Z Next Gen tag by Simon from the Hermit's Cave. So, A is for author, favorite author. I have many. I have here my Village Witch mug of hot crabapple cider next to me because it's that sort of a fall day. I have many favorite authors. One of them is, well, all of the Brontes, but I particularly like Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre and all of her other books. I love Isabel Allende. She's one of the few authors who I will buy, like, pre-order from even hardcover books when they first come out. And I don't much like hardcover books, but I need her books. It's like a requirement. Toni Morrison was the same way when she was still with us. Her books are amazing. You can't really see all this here. I love her books, and I loved them because they were stories of people that I couldn't relate to, which sounds like a funny reason for loving a book. But I'd always grown up reading books about people who were like me, and she was one of the first authors I'd ever read who wrote books and where I was not part of the target audience, which was cool. It's nice to experience the world through other people's eyes for a little bit, you know, especially, well, I don't know about especially, but if you're part of the quote-unquote dominant culture, which is white Canadian in my case. In school, most of the books I ended up reading were by white people. I didn't read a book by anybody who wasn't white, as far as I know, until grade 11 or 12, which is far too late. So I've done a lot of catching up since then, and Toni Morrison was one of those authors who wrote about the experience of Black Americans in a way that I had never read before, because the only things I'd ever read were, you know, slavery and textbooks, and that doesn't really describe to you the effect that has on people. So anyway, amazing. She's amazing. Isabel Allende was also the first person, going back to her for 1 second, I read who wrote in sort of a magical realism style, which was super fun. Another favorite author is Cherie Dimaline. She is Métis in Canada, and she's amazing. She's written the Marrow Thieves book, and I think it has a sequel out now. This is one of her adult books, and it's Empire of Wild, and it's wonderful. She just has such an incredible imagination and merges cultures. That's maybe not the right way to describe it, but characters move through different cultures in her book, and so it's sort of similar to Toni Morrison. Then I read about cultures that are different from ways of living that are different from how I live in the world, which I always find interesting. And her imagination is spectacular. And N.K. Jemisin. I only got a couple more favorite authors. I really could just do an entire video about favorite authors, but I won't do that today. But N.K. Jemisin was the first fantasy author I read who wasn't, you know, European Middle Ages swords and that sort of thing, which, you know, is fun. I like it. Tolkien here is the last one on my list. This was also one of the first books I'd read, the first fantasy book I'd read, because I hadn't read Octavia Butler by then, or any others, where the majority of the characters were not white. They were Black or whatever else, various other skin colors and experiences, and obviously she may be American, but the book is set in a fantasy world, and it's magnificent. I mean, she has as good imagination as Tolkien or what's his name, who wrote Game of Thrones, but she's a better writer than he is, I think. So yeah, fantastic books. I have, up until the other day, I had all of her books. I've given away the cities. I can't remember what the book is called, that's set in New York, because it's very New York based, and that's not my cup of tea. But her other books are very fantasy world building, amazingness. And then the last of my favorite authors for today, is Tolkien, because I've read these books several times and I've watched the movies. I don't actually know how many times I've watched the movies. Many. Sometimes in French in an attempt to learn French. And it's just like, even just opening it up to this page just feels cozy. It's a beautiful story, and I know it's not for everybody because he can, you know, spend 2.5 pages describing a tree. But I don't mind that. I like a good tree. So, yeah, love these books, love the maps, love the world. Could live there. I'd make a very good hobbit, I think. So that was A. I'll go through the next ones more quickly, but I'm a book nerd, so. B is Biggest Regret, and I try not to live in a place of regret. I'll just play with these while I'm talking. Because I have depression and anxiety, so I actively try not to ruminate on things, because I just don't need that. It's not going to be helpful. That being said, I've certainly regretted things I've said to my brothers when we were younger. I think we're all okay now, but there were days. C is for car. What do you listen to the most? I don't have a car. I don't like cars. I don't like being in moving vehicles. I have a tendency to get motion sick, and so I prefer walking. I will take public transit when I need to, but walking is definitely where it's at for me. But I tend to listen to, if I'm not listening to audiobooks, both fiction and nonfiction, though it tends to be nonfiction. Herbalism type, plenty geekiness at the moment. Then I tend to listen to YouTube, but as podcasts. Sorry, I was looking at my notes and I spelled something funny and then it autocorrected something really, really wrong. So I got distracted there for a second. Sorry. Yes, YouTube as podcast is what I tend to do. And so I keep playlists of like witchy things to watch, tarot things to watch, herbalism, anything about plants, really, videos to watch. I also have a collection of videos about language learning and what about skincare, which I'm not very good at, but I enjoy watching videos about it all the same, or listening to. Usually I listen to it as I'm doing other things, because just sitting and watching something is not something I'm good at. D is for divination tool other than tarot. And I don't tend to, I don't even tend to use tarot for divination. Oh, there's a card that got stuck in there. I know other people do, and, whatever floats your boat is fine. Personally, I tend to use it more for self-development and just seeing things from other perspectives. However, I have made myself a set of runes to try and learn the runes. And so I spent about, a few months, I can't remember how many months, going out and searching for the perfect rock. A suitable rock for each of the runes. And I'm not very well versed in the runes. I really should spend more time working on it at some point. But yeah, that would be it if I ever actually... my list of books to read is ridiculous, and so I have not gotten to a lot of learning about runes yet, but it's on my list. E is for eat. What would you want to eat as your last meal? I always went for lasagna as a birthday meal as a kid. Always like that, and anything chocolate. These days, I have a chocolate torte that I make. It's like a chocolate cake, not chocolate like birthday cake consistency, but really dense, fudgy chocolate cake torte situation, or chocolate truffles, something like intensely chocolatey, like ridiculously over the top chocolate. Fears. F is for fears. Do you have any? What are they? Rational or irrational? Yes, I think everybody does. I'm not crazy about all sorts of bugs, really, but I've gotten less afraid of them since I've started gardening. Now, if I see a spiders indoors, I'm still a bit not crazy about that. um, but yeah, as I've started gardening more, even just on my little apartment balcony, I've gotten more used to bugs just being part of the environment because they're around, and sometimes quite helpful, sometimes a bit destructive, but you know, I think even if you don't set out to learn about them, you sort of accidentally learn about them when you learn about gardening, because they're just part of the environment. But yeah, not crazy about those. I also have social anxiety sort of fears. I'm autistic, so I don't, social skills, not my area. So possibly that's slightly rational in my case. G is for game. Favorite to play. I mean, I'll play whatever board game or card game my family's playing at any given time, but Dutch Blitz is an all-time favorite, and you used to only be able to, you can find this in game stores now in Canada, but it used to be that you could only find it in Christian bookstores, of all the weirdest places. I don't know why that was. But yeah, Dutch Blitz, if you've never played it, they say it's fast-paced fun. It is very fast-paced. And cards will get bent in the mayhem. There is much mayhem. It's a lot of fun though. I love it. Highly recommend. Can never find enough people. You have to have at least 3 people to play it really well. Like, you can't really play it with 2 because it's just too, the game doesn't last very long and it's a bit too boring. So I can never find enough people in my family to play it. Oh well. H is for holiday. What's your favorite time of the year? Mine is Christmas. No contest. Just Christmas. The whole holiday season. Like, once it turns to fall into Thanksgiving, which in Canada is at a more reasonable time in October. So we've got a bit of more of a gap between our big festive seasons than Americans do. But I mean, the whole season I love, from Thanksgiving right through Christmas, but Christmas, if I had to pick one, is my favorite. I love it. I've only spent one Christmas away from home. Usually I go home, see my family, do all the just sort of hanging out with my family and eating together and playing board games, and you know, we don't do anything extravagant or anything. It's pretty ordinary, really, but it's fun, and I love it. I is for interest. An interest someone might not know about you. I haven't crocheted lately. I used to crochet a lot. This I probably started like 2 years ago, and it's so tiny. It's like it would be a giant shawl for a Barbie. It's not a human-sized shawl yet, but you know, one day I'll get there. I have done a few rows this month, or last month. So one day I'll get back into the swing of things there. I also used to crochet a lot, and I've just started doing that again. So I've got some of these. These are just pieces of cardboard that were in chocolate containers, I think. And so I've just started mucking about with that, and it's, you know, bit of chaos, but it's fun. These days my primary interest is herbalism, and occasionally I keep trying to learn French and Arabic, but then I do a really ineffective and ill-advised thing, and I take a break for like a month. Because my interest sort of wanes and I get interested in other things, and then I get back to it and, you know, spend 2 weeks relearning all the things I've forgotten in the last month. And so it's not the most effective way of learning, but I mean, whatever. I'm moving in a forward-like direction on that front. I also do watch some sports on TV, like watching tennis and cycling and the Olympics and hockey. J is for joy, something that brings you joy. At the moment, it's the crunchy fall leaves. Usually it's things in nature, or books, or food. I love good food. Chocolate in particular, as I've said, but any sort of good food that you can really savor. Particularly if it's something like that, it's a family meal that somebody's put love and intention into. Also my brother's dogs. My brother's has a golden retriever. They're nuts. They're absolutely bonkers dogs, but they're adorable and I love them. They're ridiculous, but they bring me joy. K is for karaoke. What would you sing on a karaoke night? Nothing. I avoid karaoke at all costs. I don't like it. I don't like watching other people do it. I would never do it myself. If other people want to go out and do it, you know, go nuts. Go to town. Very much not for me. L is for what makes you laugh the most. And for some reason, I had a bit of difficulty with this one. I think probably because I'm too serious of a person. I should find more things that make me laugh, but I've always been, when I was a kid, I was much too serious for a kid. It was not good. Shouldn't have been so serious. Oh well. M is for movie. One you love and could watch over and over. Apollo 13, which is now on Amazon Prime, and it's been dubbed in French, which makes me so happy, because I've no idea how many times I've watched that in English, and now I can watch it in French, and I'm delighted. I've watched it several times already, and will watch it many more times. N is for nature. Where in nature do you feel most connected? Anywhere, really. Anywhere I can touch the ground or touch a tree. The less concrete and pavement, the better. The mountains are lovely, but the prairies are lovely. Like, I grew up on the prairies, so I'm a prairie girl. Yeah. Anywhere I can connect to the earth and see a tree, which there aren't enough of in the downtown area that I live in. O is for optimistic. What are your hopes for the future? I live in a very oil-centric province, and I hope someday it's less oil industry centric, and if we could end up in a place where we treat money with less reverence, despite its usefulness, which I recognize, and the earth with more reverence, that would make me more optimistic. That's what I would hope for the future, in my particular corner of the world. Pip deck. What's your favorite pip deck? I only have one because one-ish. I have the 7th Sphere Marseille Tarot, which I've shown before. It's wonderful. So it's got the illustrated majors and quartz, and then is very pippy for the pip cards. So there's the knight, and then with the 6 with just the flowers and the cups. And so yeah, still learning about this, but it's a favorite. And the reason I say one-ish is because I also have playing cards. I've got a couple different playing card decks and a couple more I'd like to get. I've got a couple that are plant-based. These are purple unicorn based, because why not? And they're all, instead of black and red, they are pink and purple, and it makes me happy. So yeah, that's a favorite. Q is quality time. What do you consider quality time spent? Just hanging out, with no expectations. As I've said, because I'm autistic, we tend to go in for something that, if you're talking about autistic kids, it's called parallel play, where kids do their own things, but like in the vicinity of other kids also doing their own things. That tends to be what we go for, rather than playing together in groups. So even as an adult, that's more my thing. Like if I go home to visit my family, instead of reading a book in bed, I'll just like be in the living room on the sofa reading a book, that kind of thing. winner is for Reincarnation. If you could be reborn in any time period, when would that be and why? If there was ever a time period where weird, only occasionally social, autistic people were just accepted, that's where I would be. I don't know if that's ever been a thing in any time or place. If it has, I would love to know. But yeah, that would be it. S is for sacred. What's sacred to you? The earth, the trees, the air, the water, etc. Those are sacred to me. That's the being out in nature's, I mean, we're part of nature, but being outdoors around trees is where I would consider sort of the closest thing I've got now to churchy scenario. All right, T is for tarot. So what is your current favorite deck? So the Gentle Tarot, and particularly this in a tin version, which is with its soft gold gilding and just gentle, sweet, adorable artwork, is my all-time favorite. It will never, ever, ever not be a favorite. I get this in my hands and I feel calmer. It just feels like an exhale. Speaking of which, yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautifully produced deck, and I love the feel of it. So it's a lovely sensory experience, and her Mari in the Skies artwork is stunning. And anyone who makes this sort of earth-centric, sort of decolonized deck I'm a fan. Basically, I love her decks. However, at this exact moment, there are 3 runners up. My apartment is making weird noises. That's exciting. So one is the Hasindazi, the Roots of Asia, which is a Buddhist focused themed, I guess you could say Buddhist themed deck. The 2 creators are Asian Buddhist men, I believe men. Could be mistaken there. And if this ever went back into print, I would be thrilled, and I would get an extra copy. I was lucky to find it on eBay for a not unreasonable price. It does make its appearances on eBay every now and again. And I love the artwork. It's beautiful. But I also like the meditative quality to a lot of the cards. Obviously the moon. But even some of the other ones you can sort of sink into and really meditate on, I guess. So that's one of the runners up. Another is another abstract deck, probably my most abstract deck, and that is the Margaret Peterson. And I haven't used this as much as I should. I mean, should. How often should you use anything tarot related? Do what you like. But I say should, but I don't know that it needs a should attached to it. However, I love her artwork, and I just love the feeling of each of these little pieces of art. And so I love having 1 or 2 propped up on my bookshelf, and then every time I pass them, I just think about, connect with how they make me feel. There's less thinking and more feeling with this deck, which is useful because I spend too much time in my head. So this is a more intuitive, emotional sort of deck, and that's very helpful for me, I think. And it's beautiful. It's an even like yellow, and I love that, like, I don't know, I love it. Stunning. It's stunning. I think she spent quite a lot of years, decades even, making these paintings. So yeah, beautiful. And then the last one I've been using a lot lately is the Tarot of the Abyss by Anna Tran. And it is, I think it's her only mass market deck, as far as I'm aware, and I don't have her others, but I might get, when she comes out with the Echoes Tarot, she's got an Oracle of Echoes, and I think she's making that Echoes related tarot. So when that comes out, I'll probably get that, because I love her artwork, and this is her only black and white one. Usually she's quite a lot more colorful, but this doesn't need color to be so emotional, and so evocative, and so yeah, I've pulled this out and I'm using this quite a lot lately. So that's a current favorite. U, nearing the end of the alphabet here. U is unforgettable moment. I have a terrible memory, so I had a hard time with this too. I had difficulty thinking of an unforgettable moment because I forget everything. I've forgotten large chunks of my childhood and even a not small amount of my adulthood, because mental illnesses are fun like that. So I don't really have a good answer for that one. V is vacation. Favorite destination? Either somewhere in the mountains around Banff or adjacent areas, or home to Saskatchewan. And I realize Saskatchewan is not usually a vacation destination hotspot, but for me, it's beautiful. And but it's the sort of beauty that won't, unlike the beauty in the mountains, it's not going to come up and smack you in the face if you're not paying attention to it. You really have to focus in on it, or you're going to miss it. W is well-being. What do you do to keep it in check? I go for a lot of walks outdoors. Connecting with nature is the big one. I occasionally do yoga. I haven't lately. I should do more one day. I'll get back into it. And I cook as much whole food as I have the energy to cook, which I don't always. And I've sort of come to a place where I am less judgmental of myself in that regard if I have to eat pre-made food because I don't have the energy to cook. Because I like cooking, but energy budgeting is a thing. X is for X-ray. Have you had one? Ever broken a bone? I've never broken a bone, but my jaw was X-rayed once because of TMJ problems, so that's fun. Y is yourself. When can you feel totally comfortable in your own skin? By myself in my apartment is the answer to that one. And Z is for zodiac. What star sign are you? Do you feel a connection to it? So I'm not hugely into astrology. It just doesn't, I don't know. I've learned tiny bits and pieces, but it doesn't do a lot for me. I mean, if it's for you, go nuts. What I have found out is, so I did look at my chart once, just out of curiosity, and I find I have too much fire in my chart. I'm really not that fiery. It's weird. So I'm a Taurus, Sun, and Moon, which is fine. I mean, that makes a certain amount of sense to me. But I'm a Sagittarius rising, which makes no sense to me. And I have various other fire signs in my chart, which is, and it's just weird to me. It's just weird. So on that note, that is the Get to Know Your Tarot Tubers tag, Tarot Tubers A to Z Next Gen. A VR to Simon at the Hermit's Cave, who is fantastic. And so with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.